Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining our Lunch and Learn for June 1st. He said, she said, they said, what? I'm actually going to turn it over to Ms. Tamita Yaramilli, who will be presenting or who will be introducing our speaker today.
Good afternoon, everyone. I turned off my video because I noticed it was lagging a little bit, but I'm here to introduce Paya Fitzgerald. She is a wellness tactician and CEO of Wow Factor and certified EQI 2.0 EQ 360 facilitator, specializing in providing social emotional supports to professionals by leveraging emotional intelligence to achieve goals. Paya combines her experience as a CEO, licensed educator, EQI 2.0 360 facilitator, and wellness professional to facilitate creative and comprehensive training and development targeting the whole person. She has served in education for over 20 years and left the classroom in 2014 to operate her company full-time. In addition to serving as CEO of Wow Factor, Paya is a doctoral student in the Young State University Educational Leadership Program. Her focus is on expanding adult social emotional capacity. Paya loves to see people win and daily walks out of her purpose to encourage hearts and guide transformative action. To help people actualize this work, she authored Wow, I Can Lose Weight 2019, created by the Wow Factor Social Emotional Learning Wellness System in 2009 as a blueprint for building social emotional capacity necessary for peak performance and achieving goals. Using this research-based content, collaboration, creativity, and best practices, Paya's educational sessions are fueled with energy, provocative, best version, yet practical information. As a social emotional wellness tactician, she delights in helping people become the best version of themselves and encourages them to have fun while doing the work. Paya is a native of Youngstown, Ohio, and resides in the Columbus area. We've partnered with Paya for many years now, and we're so excited that you've all joined us today to be a part of her presentation. And I'll go ahead and toss it over to Paya. Thank you so much, everyone.
All right. First of all, can we just all give an applause to Smita for those EQ, all those doggone letters that she had the pleasure of having to read to you guys. Because listening, I'm like, oh gosh, that's a lot of letters. I apologize, but I celebrate you doing it well. So give her a hand. Okay, folks, thank you for coming today. Thank you for this session. I know we've all at some point said, what did she say? What did they say? Did they say that? And when we do that, there's a part of us that's like somewhere like we're a little offended. We're not quite sure if we should be offended. And then next thing you know, we're kind of in some kind of stress space. So I thought it would be a good idea to offer you guys some things to consider to help you manage those moments where listening doesn't quite work in your favor so that you can have it work in your favor and continue to harvest those healthy relationships. So here we go. If at any time you have a question and we don't see it in the chat, unmute yourself and interrupt. I will not be offended, okay? And so, yeah, ask questions, stop us at any time. The other thing we need you to do, we need you to make sure you turn the volume up on your computer because somewhere in the presentation we're going to show a quick video and I want to make sure that you hear the nuggets in that video. So make sure you turn your volume up now so that you can hear that video when we do show it. And let's see, and then there'll be an evaluation at the end. You said the chat, the link will be in the chat. The link will be in the chat. And so you'll want to make sure you fill that out because it helps us. We need that feedback to see what we need to do differently, what we need to keep, so on and so forth. We need that feedback. So make sure you fill that out. All right, so let's go ahead and see what's going on with he said, she said, they said what? Exploring the power of intentional listening and stress management. All right. This workshop, folks, is going to address 4 areas of emotional intelligence, 4 emotional intelligence competencies, or in the education world, you guys like to call them social emotional learning competencies. So we're looking at self-awareness, where you're going to explore how your biases can impact how you hear things. We're going to be able to address self-management, where you're going to explore, am I consistently managing or modeling control of my emotions, words, and actions when I'm listening to the other person? We are also going to look at social awareness, or touch upon social awareness, where it's where you're like, can I read and respond appropriately to the cues of others? Read and respond appropriately to the cues of others. And then finally, the fourth competency for emotional intelligence that we'll hit upon today will be relationship skills, which is why we're listening anyway, right? Do I use appropriate communication strategies and people skills to maintain healthy relationships when I'm in conversation with others? So those are your 4 areas that we're going to hit. Now, it's a 30-minute session where, it's not a deep dive. We're just going to tip our toes in the water a little bit with those areas. All right, so here's my hopefully you can see the little birds. Sometimes communication can feel like this with people. One person's digging a hole, one person's trying to get out of the hole, and yet we think we're somewhere meeting in the middle and doing and on the same page, and yet we're not, and we're wondering why we're frustrated. Those communication glitches look something like that. I like to always add a little bit of humor in there because humor is essential for our mental health. So, essential question. You should be able to answer this question by the end of our session. What does it mean to listen with intentionality? What does it mean to listen with intentionality? What does intentionality mean to you? If you could maybe add a couple words, what does it mean to be intentional? What does intentionality mean to you? If you could if some people could put a couple things in our chat. Purpose, yes, on purpose. Any more? Intentionality. It's on purpose, being on purpose. Being thoughtful, yes. Good. And the other thing with intentionality, when you're being on purpose, acting on purpose, being thoughtful, it should feel good. Yes, doing what you say. It should feel good, though. It should feel good to own that purpose. It should feel good to own that thoughtful reflection that you're putting into whatever it is you're going to say and do. Okay, so that's what intentionality is. It's not being willy-nilly, flying by the seat of your pants. Yes, taking time to be purposeful and thoughtful. Very good, thank you. All right, thank you, folks. So you should be able to answer this question as we move along. Now, I have a question for you, another question. What are barriers to listening? So let's start with that. What are some potential barriers to listening? You can go ahead and flood that chat room with your responses. What are some barriers? I will say, yes, selective hearing, personal opinion, tone, internal perceptions. Okay, yes, biases. Excuse me, absolutely, yes. Any others? I was gonna start it off with saying having judgments. Yes, preconceived thoughts. Yes. Very good. Very good. Thank you. And then how can being mindful about how you listen help you with stress management? It takes a little bit more thought, right? It takes a little bit more intentionality. So how can being mindful help you manage stress when you're engaged in a conversation, especially if it's a critical conversation or a crucial conversation or a difficult conversation? How can being mindful of how you listen help you with your stress management? What are your thoughts on that? Limiting barriers in the work. Okay, yep, that's a good one. Barriers. Know thyself. It relieves stress and anxiety when you hear another perspective. Being able to process emotions by not evaluating before you hear the whole discussion. Very good. Yeah? All right, good. Thank you. But keep these questions in mind because it's really the essence of why we're here today. Barriers and overcoming those barriers. Now, what I have before you is the Ladder of Inference created by Chris. I cannot pronounce his name properly, but we're going to go for it. Chris Argis. They're going to say it better in the video. But this Ladder of Inference is often the reason why there's unnecessary tension in a conversation, or when we're trying to listen, or when we're listening and then we take action. And so maybe I shouldn't say unnecessary tension, because sometimes tension can become a jewel for us. Tension is contrast, and contrast can actually be a gift if we allow it to be. At any rate, this Ladder of Inference is one of those where if we do not know that we're climbing it, it can work against us. So being aware of this Ladder of Inference allows us, and knowing how to come off of it, allows us to have richer conversations. It allows us to listen with intentionality. It allows us to listen in a way where we can receive what we need and give back in return. So what I want to do, make sure your computer is up so that you can hear this video. I'm going to go ahead and play this 3-minute video. It's very short, but you need to hear it. It's really good. It explains this concept of Ladder of Inference.
We all make assumptions about people all the time. It's part of how we create safety and certainty for ourselves. Sometimes our assumptions are correct, but sometimes we get ourselves and our relationships into trouble. Harvard business professor Chris Argyris came up with a useful model called the Ladder of Inference that helps us understand ourselves and the impact of these assumptions. The Ladder of Inference is a 6-rung ladder we climb, moving from what we see to what we believe, and then ultimately to what we do about it. The first rung of the ladder is observable data. This is the stuff that you notice about your surroundings. Let's say you're presenting in a meeting and you see that everyone is paying attention except for Andrew, who appears to be staring out of the window. The second rung is selected data. You can't take in all the data you observe, so you can only take in selected data and ignore the rest. So after that meeting, you come away only remembering that Andrew wasn't paying attention. The third rung is assumptions, where you start to add meaning to your observations. So you might think that Andrew just isn't interested in new ideas. Now you move to the fourth rung, where you make conclusions, and you decide that Andrew just doesn't like your ideas. If you see this behavior a few times, you then progress to beliefs, which is a dangerous area. You might start to think that Andrew resents you being his leader, and that he's jealous of you. This will then change how you select data, and it becomes cyclical. You only notice those times when Andrew is not actively engaged. The final rung is actions. Because you believe Andrew doesn't like your ideas, or you as his leader, you stop sharing ideas with him and stop asking for his input. And this plays into another cycle where, by acting in a certain way, we create more situations where we observe more data that reinforces our beliefs. And the crazy thing is, this all happens in your own head in just the blink of an eye. So, how do you get off the ladder? The first thing to do is to question your assumptions and your conclusions, and think about what data you select and what data you avoid. Perhaps ask yourself, what else could be going on in Andrew's life? Secondly, seek contrary data. What else did you notice in the meeting that might have indicated Andrew was engaged? Was he taking notes or asking questions? Understanding how the Ladder of Inference works can help you build more resourceful and healthier relationships with others. By getting into the habit of questioning your assumptions and seeking contrary data, ultimately you and others around you will be happier and more successful.
All right. Okay. What'd you guys think about that? Any thoughts when you consider the ladder of influence, especially when it comes to looking at barriers to communication, to effective communication? Let's see here. Oh, great info, yes. And you can probably see how this can be actually a stress management tool. Okay, I'm going to go to the next slide, and I hope that you guys can, I hope I'm not delayed. Okay, good. All right, so now my question to you all, my next question is, what are your patterns of listening? When you're listening, find yourself engaged, and maybe this is circumstantial, depending on who you're with. Maybe it's contextual based on what you're doing. But what are your patterns of listening? Are you the person where when you're listening, you're trying to always make connections and you want to interject to make sure that the other person is aware that you're making the connection? I'm going to raise my hand because I believe that that's something I have to intentionally watch myself, because otherwise I think that's my pattern, to try to make those connections. Or are you the type of listener where you want to just jump in and fix the problem when maybe all they need you to do is just listen and be present? What about the debater? Are you the one that's always trying to find something wrong with the situation, or you just want to, how they say, play the devil's advocate or what have you? Are you that kind? Is that your pattern of listening? Or are you the one who's always asking clarifying questions? And not that that is wrong, not that connecting is wrong, not that fixing or even debating all serve their place. I just want you to consider what's your pattern, what's your default, without you really realizing it. Are you the kind of listener, you have a pattern where you're experiencing these uncomfortable feelings of emotion and you don't know what to do with it, and you get stuck in that those feelings of discomfort? Or are you the opposite? Are you the comfortable, where I'm chilled, I'm caring, excited? I think that's definitely my pattern, but again, sometimes too much of that can work against us. Or are you the listener where you're looking for the exercise, like, when is this about to be over? I need this fool to stop talking because I'm done. I was done three words in. Are you that person? Is that your pattern? Especially, again, keep it in mind, we're talking about circumstantial and contextual. Maybe there's a certain circumstance or context, or there's a certain person where your default pattern is, I need the exit door. Where is it? How do I get out of this conversation? Or is your pattern of listening where you're zoning out, worrying about what you got to do in 3 hours, worrying what you will have to do tomorrow? This actually can be one of those when we're in a team meeting. It can be a default for many people to zone out and figure out what else they have to do because they're not necessarily engaged. Through no fault of anyone, it happens. So just think about that for a moment. What is your listening pattern? And questions, comfortable, typically good for good debate, connect, fix, question, very good, yeah. This is about, folks, this question right here is another example where when you are intentional about that, you are developing a greater measure of self-awareness. When you're self-aware, the more self-aware you are in this space, the more you can self-manage. You can, do more self-regulation with your emotions and how you interact with others. So this is right here, beautiful example of what it means to dive in and become more self-aware. So what are your patterns of listening? Just be mindful of that as you go throughout the day today. Now for our activity. Okay, folks, in order for this to work, this will be easy. We need everybody to participate. So, Lydia, are you going to be okay with, I'm going to give the instructions. Are you okay with putting people in random pairs, random dyads?
Or you want them in breakout rooms?
Yes. Yep. Random. Yep. No particular. So here's what I need you to do. So first and foremost, if your first name begins with A through M, you will be person A. If your first name begins with N through Z, you will be person B. Okay? Now, here's what I want you guys to do. Person A is you're going to take turns doing this. So this is how we're going to close this out. You're going to take 2 minutes max, and you're going to respond to a certain prompt. And here's the prompt. Everybody gets the same prompt. You're going to share in 2 minutes an assumption that you made about someone that was incorrect, or you're going to share an assumption that was made about you that was incorrect. And what was the takeaway? You only have 120 seconds, okay? And then person B, you're going to listen, and you're going to listen with, you'll pick one of these. I want you to listen with, in fact, I'm just going to tell you. How about that? Because then everybody's going to try to listen with love. Person B, you have a choice to listen with anger. You have a choice to listen with sadness. Or you have a choice to listen with curiosity. So anger, sadness, and curiosity. So when you're listening to them tell their story, I want you to intentionally listen either with anger, sadness, or curiosity. And then when it's your turn to flip, person B, you will respond to the same prompt, an assumption that you made about someone that turned out to be incorrect, or an assumption that was made about you that turned out to be incorrect. What was it, and what did you take away from it? When they're listening to you, person B, share your story, person A, you're going to listen with gratitude. You're going to listen with judgment, or you're going to listen with possibility. And then we'll see how that shakes out. Everybody, any questions on what we need to do? Any questions? Okay, so we can go ahead, and you're going to be in your rooms for literally 5 minutes, and that's it. I'm not going to be in a room, but go ahead. I guess she has you where you can join. Is that right? Am I doing it? Am I hearing and seeing that right? Or what?
You are correct.
Okay. And I'll be here waiting for you guys. You got 2 minutes for each of you. Hooray! Hello, everybody. All right. So my question, I'm only going to ask one because I want to be respectful of your time. Although I'm already a little bit over, I appreciate your patience. How was that experience of listening? So like when you respond in the chat, just tell me what emotion you use. Like did you listen with anger? Did you listen with judgment? What did you pick? And just briefly, how was that for you? Or you can unmute yourself, or both, one or the other. What was that like for you? Or what came to mind?
Oh, it'll just be easier for me to say it. Hi.
That's
So I
fine.
was with my buddy Delrica Grubbs, and one of the things that we realized is that when you are doing your listening, there is this nonverbal communication that's happening, but even in that, the message can be mixed. So for example, one of us was playing the role of sad, and it was a lot of like facial expressions and body language, but then just remembering to throw in a couple of words so they know that the body language is received the right way. Like, oh, that's so sad, or I'm sorry to hear that. So adding in some soft touches to match your listening style.
Okay, thank you. One more. Oh, I felt loved and understood. And by the way, the link, please capture that link for the evaluation. And we really, really need that information. Can we get one more piece of feedback on what came to mind as you did that little quick activity? Or, what was it like? Just whatever. Tell us a little bit about that experience. What was your takeaway? A brave soul. Someone's going to give it to us. I feel like it's this person, Jay Scriven, because her face is glowing. Diminishing stereotypes. Yes, thank you. It does. I mean, it makes you think about that. It's when you're intentional about listening, because that's really what. So take a look, capture these questions on your phone. Take a snapshot of these. Although Lydia's going to send out the recording for this session as well as the PowerPoint, but just make sure you capture these questions. And really, even though this was a quick session, think about how you think. Think about your listening. Think about what's on your mind when you're listening to me right now. Shoot, what are you even thinking about right now? Like, this lady needs to hurry up. It is like 12:34. I'm just done with it. I don't know what you're thinking about, but that's the point. Think about what you're thinking about when you're listening, and be mindful of how it can obscure the message and ultimately perhaps cause unnecessary stress, and at worst cause there to be this disconnection that prevents you guys from moving forward as a team. All right, so you know what? I am going to be thank you for your patience. Wow factor activated, and I'm going to stop sharing and allow you guys to close it out.